Space whales? Nope, rather deal with devils. Chapter 21, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Literally barely even in the world of DxD for a week, and I already have a harem in the making. Not bad, Jake. I whispered with a wry, proud smile as I took a quick shower to get all the sweat off me from being in the sauna with Momo and that whole episode. But besides that, I guess it's time to take Serafall off to probably kidnap some magical girls. I muttered as I stepped out of the shower and began drying myself off with the luxurious towels Sona had stocked in the student council apartment wing of the school. And with the bounty hunt earlier today, and having that time with Momo, I decided to call it an early night, but shot Serafall a message stating that I would be ready to go to the world of Madoka Magica, in order for her to try to recruit whichever girls she wanted for her peerage. I myself knew who I wanted already from the world, and frankly, she was low-hanging easy fruit, honestly. Tomo Mami, the blonde older magical girl, was an orphan in the event that she gained her powers in a violent traffic accident, and she had zero family. Zero friends with her magical girl activities, so she had a major desire for people to connect to. With the Key of Solomon and my own Siowa back perks of magical intuition and understanding, I was literally a walking waifu catalog agent, except without the mind control and crippling angst about said mind control. I sure as hell wasn't going to get angsty about one of my waifus waking me up with a blowjob. Leave that pansy crybaby nonsense to the anime harem protags who get nosebleeds at seeing some tits. Either way, Serafall clearly wanted Madoka and Hamura, and frankly, depending on the timeline we land therein, we could probably get them pretty easily with their crippling issues once we set them down and forced them to quit dancing around and just dramatically saying one another's name or just sighing their friend's name in sadness. Not even a full minute after I sent the message to Serafall, I got a reply with a picture attached, and seeing it, I snorted. Serafall was wearing a tight-fitting ladies' business dress wearing a pencil skirt and a button-up blouse, but Serafall had unbuttoned the clearly already straining buttons holding her large breasts back, and she had written a message on her tits instead of just sending a message to me. Love, I will be there. For a second, I considered sending a dick pic back, but instead, I sent a heart back with a winky face and a simple but heartfelt "thank you dearly" to show my appreciation. With that sent, I signed in comfort as I fell into the bed and looked up at the unfamiliar ceiling above me. It's surprising that it's spackled drywall. Not some fancy wood paneling or something. I whispered as I felt a pinch in my heart as I recalled my old apartment in my old life, in which I had a similar ceiling. But the specs, ridges, and texture were wrong. For all that I could go to any fictional world I wanted, I couldn't go back to my old world due to my soul being rejected by the world due to my death. To say nothing of how my soul was tainted by the deals I made with a conceptual hell to get my powers. Maybe I should take Sona to Pokemon to get our familiars, I whispered slowly as I closed my eyes and I drifted off into a sleep in which a massive dragon's yellow eyes filled my unconscious mind and touched upon my dreams of infinite worlds just out of reach of my hands even if I could touch upon the worlds at will but couldn't go there. The next morning I was awoken bright and early. Not due to my own volition, mind you, as I awoke to a pressing weight against my chest and the heavy blankets I preferred with the ultra-cold room temperature had entrapped the extra warmth the extra body next to me had trapped within the weighted blanket's grasp. Looking down, I was instantly able to tell who my uninvited bed guest was. Well, unless Kaneko had grown some larger breasts that I could feel in my hands as I had rolled over in my sleep to be the big spoon with the woman. As only Kaneko and Momo had white hair. And I was able to tell Momo was awake too, funny enough. As she was clearly breathing a bit too quickly to be relaxed, to be anywhere near relaxed, to be asleep. Well, this is a lovely surprise, I whispered gently into the back of her neck, and then my hand, that was casually laying over her breasts had one of her hands close over it and a thin sleeping gown she was wearing was only a tiny layer of silk between my hand and her breast so I was able to feel out everything. Momo's soft voice responded even as a small hint of pink came to her ears, that made me inwardly coo at how cute she was. I wanted to try this. I hope it wasn't too soon, or abrupt. She said with embarrassment and some shame clear in her voice, and at her words, I rolled my eyes while holding in a snort. Instead, I chuckled with my other arm that was under her body and wrapped around her stomach, pulled her back and backside against my waist as I buried my face into her neck as I breathed in her scent, and as she shivered I pulled back an inch so I didn't get her thick white hair in my mouth or something as I spoke wryly. Momo, I am not gay, you are beautiful, and I get along well with you as I can trust my life in your hands during a mission. Plus, we have already been naked together, this is just a bit more intimate. I joked, making her actually snort, and then I felt some tension leave her body as her hand that was over my own on her breasts gave a squeeze while she pushed the rest of her back and backside flush against me. And in that tight lover's hold, we just snuggled for God knows how long as I honestly kinda drifted off into a stupor with the sounds of the birds chirping in the early morning filtering through the window. Finally, though, a quiet alarm went off on my bedside table and Momo whined with her rolling against me as though telling me that if we ignored it, we wouldn't need to get up. But Momo gathered up her motivation, and she reached over and tapped the middle of her phone to turn off the alarm, leaving the room almost silent beyond the sounds of the birds. "Alright, Momo. It's gotta be close to class time for you," I whispered, and she looked at me with pitiful blue eyes that only made me snort, and I leaned down to this time, steal the kiss. And Momo's widened briefly before she closed her eyes and embraced the kiss, but like her last night, I broke the kiss and as she looked at me, dumbfoundedly for ruining the make-out, I winked as my phone went off at the perfect moment. "Sorry, Momo, but Lady Serafall has a mission for me," I said, taking entirely too much joy as Momo's face twisted into a scowl at the damned perfect timing. Prominently displayed across my phone was the message. "I am here talking with Sona. Meet us for breakfast right meow." It was time to snag some magical girls to get myself a universal beat stick. And then for the next world after that, well, the Omniverse was my oyster. I still had 9 years and 51 weeks left to this date, before I needed to kill Sion or have him die. I had plenty of time to figure something out.